and welcome to the podcast Coffee with the Kensington, where we talk about all things related to seniors, their caregivers, and families. My name is Brenda Moynihan, and I'm the Director of Marketing and Outreach at the Kensington Assisted Living. And I'm also your host of the podcast. My guest today is Norma Loeb, founder and president from the Lewy Body Dementia Resource Center. Welcome, Norma.
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you for having me on here.
Why don't you tell everybody, so they have a background of you, tell everybody how you got started with Lewy Body and this organization.
My mom had Lewy body dementia, and she had it for many, many years. When we first had an inkling of it was when she was 75 and couldn't do her checkbook. And from there, it took 3.5 years to be diagnosed, just jumping ahead for a minute. And I then, quite a few years later, had been leading the only support groups in New York. So I've been doing that for over 13 years now. That's how I got started.
Okay. And why don't you tell the listeners, what exactly is Lewy body dementia?
Lewy body dementia, if I had to say it quickly and easily, you would say it's sort of a combination of Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's. Mm-hmm. It's not really accurate that way, but it is a combination of problems with cognition, which is more with executive function, meaning problem solving, and more than memory loss, which comes later. But it's a combination of those cognition issues and Parkinson's symptoms, which I'd love to point out, since I didn't know what they were. It doesn't just mean a tremor in the hand, which a lot of people with Lewy body don't have. Mm-hmm. It's rigidity in the arms and legs and very slow movement and a shuffling walk. And in addition to the Parkinson's and cognition issues, they have hallucinations, many times of small animals and children, but other times very frightening ones. There are also fluctuations in the disease. So someone with other types of dementia, you of course, people have good and bad days, but many times you know what to expect. Someone with Lewy body can be speaking the way you and I are right now, and then later on in the day or a couple of days later won't be able to finish a sentence or two. And then there are depression and a REM sleep disorder and a visual spatial issue, but those are the main ones.
Tell us, your mom, you said it took about 3.5 years to diagnose her. What were her symptoms early on?
Because she couldn't do the checkbook right away, it's about multitasking and figuring more than memory necessarily. So she had problems with that, having trouble with a remote control, with a phone, and but it took a long time to be diagnosed because most people with Lewy body are misdiagnosed. And right. Happy to talk about that and why it's important not to be.
And how, for example, how was your mom diagnosed? How are people diagnosed with this disease?
Mainly, it's usually the people who diagnose it most easily are neurologists, movement disorder neurologists, even better. And because you can't see all of the symptoms I just mentioned in an office visit, you're not going to see the fluctuations. You won't see the REM sleep disorder, which means people are thrashing in their sleep. And many times you might not even see the cognition issues, and you may just see the slowness of walk. So it's really important to go with a whole list of symptoms, or if you have a really good doctor, they ask all of those questions.
Right. Okay. And what you were caregiving for your mom, is that right, Norma?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I was caregiver for her for 18 years in different capacities. Wow. And she lived with me for the last 7 years when she was bedridden.
And what are some recommendations you can give to caregivers today that are caring for someone with Lewy body dementia?
Okay. Firstly, if they're caring, Brenda, if it's okay with you, I just want to say the importance of being diagnosed correctly, because there are many people who are being cared for at home and they are diagnosed or misdiagnosed with just Parkinson's or just Alzheimer's or psychiatric disorder. And the reason why it's so important to be diagnosed correctly is because people with Lewy body dementia are extremely sensitive to medications, and the wrong ones can make them much worse.
Right.
And that's key to it. So in caring for someone with LBD at home, there is a big caregiver burden, because it's not just cognition issues and memory loss, but also the Parkinson's symptoms. It affects every muscle in the body.
Right.
And then you have the sleep disorder. And then particularly you have the fluctuations. So you don't know what to expect. And even more than that, it's hard because most people never heard of it. And I want to stress strongly that it is not a rare disease.
Right.
It is the second most common form of progressive dementia after Alzheimer's disease.
I hear you. It must be very difficult caring for someone with this disease because, as you said, one day they're talking and they're functioning, but then an hour later or the next day, the disease kind of overtakes them. So, whereas, right, with Alzheimer's, if someone is in the throes of Alzheimer's, you kind of know, okay, today mom has poor memory, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But with Lewy body, it's much more difficult, right?
It is much more difficult. And because there are so many other symptoms, apathy is actually a big symptom. So it may seem that the person is looking lazy today, which has an effect on the caregiver at home. Why are you did this the other day and now you're not doing it and you have no interest, and it looks like it's intentional. Or if they're falling asleep, because there's daytime sleepiness is a big part of it too. Why are you taking more than one nap, 2 naps, 3 naps, and they can't help it? So it's at first when you see it, you feel that they're looking lazy or they don't care, and it's so not the case, and that's why it's difficult.
Right. And I think that's why it's so important to get the right diagnosis.
Yes, for a number of reasons, from medications and also for the understanding of it.
Right. Let's talk about your organization and what are some of the resources that your organization provides?
I founded the organization 5 years ago, and there were only 2 Lewy body organizations in the country. I used to be on the board of the other one, and mine is the Lewy Body Dementia Resource Center. I thought it was really important to share as many resources as possible, because as I was researching things to understand it from my mom, there was so much to learn, and I wanted to share as much as I could and on individual basis. So there are thousands of resources on the website. In addition to that, we have the only live helpline for Lewy body in the country. And that's available 7 days a week from 8 to 8. And we have support groups, because it's so many people will go to Alzheimer's support groups or for caregivers or Parkinson's, but everything is helpful. But having support groups specifically for caregivers of people with Lewy body is really important because of the differences that I just spoke about. And when they hear that they're not the only ones going through this, your husband does that too. I can't believe it. My husband's been doing this, and so forth.
And the support groups, are they virtual? Are they live?
They used to be live. They're all virtual right now. So I'm welcoming people from, there are certain states that don't have them. There are some that do. So I'm welcoming whoever wants to come. And what I never had in all these years was a support group for people with Lewy body dementia. And I just started that about 6 weeks ago, and have gotten a lot of people attending, and it's important for them as well to connect and hear and, to answer the questions that they each have.
And to get validation.
Yes.
To get validation that it is a disease, that they're, as you said, they're not being lazy. It's part of the disease process.
Yeah. And they have a lot of difficulty. So they need to talk to each other.
Is there any, because I do want you to give your contact information to the listeners, but is there the most important thing that you want the listeners to hear that they should know about this disease, about Lewy body dementia?
The most important thing, if they've been diagnosed, the most important thing is to be diagnosed correctly. I can't stress that enough because of the medications. There are certain medications that can make them much worse. I generally don't talk about those because I don't have a medical background, but a certain medication, and I feel strongly to need to say it, like Haldol, can make them much worse, can put them in a coma. And when they're having hallucinations that are difficult, sometimes they need an antipsychotic, but that's why it's important to have the right neurologist or geriatrician or neuropsychologist who knows the disease. So it's really important to have the right physician who understands it. And we can help with that from the website or on the helpline. And it's also important, I think, with any of these diseases to really have patience, and it can be so difficult, which is why the support groups are really helpful, because they can really feel your energy. And if you are angry and frustrated, they're feeling that too. And, we all want to have someone be kind to us and loving, and it goes a long way, but all of us know it's not easy all the time.
Right. That's very true. And Norma, tell the listeners, if they want to get in touch with you, they want information from your website, what's your contact information?
Okay. Thanks, Brenda. The shorter version of the website, even though it's the Lewy Body Resource Center.org, is LBD, like Lewy Body Dementia, LBDNY.org. And the helpline is 833-LBD-LINE.
Again, just repeat that again. Sure.
Thank you. It's 833-LBD-LINE. And the more local number you can also use is 516-218-2026. And I'll repeat that one, 516-218-2026.
Right. Thank you so much, Norma. And folks, you've got the information. Please go to their website. A lot of good information there. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Brenda.